Welcome into RedHawk Baseball Weekly. We are back. 2026 season is getting started this weekend. Luke West Poley, head coach of the Miami RedHawks, Brian Smiley. Coach, coming off a MAC championship year, you went to the NCAA tournament. I'm sure a lot of work done over these last few months, but having just been around the game of college baseball for as long as you have, what is this week like for you, just excitement wise, as you get ready to finally get going again?
Yeah, this week, no matter, every year goes by, it seems like it comes so fast. It's like you blink and then all of a sudden you're 24 hours away. We leave here in about 24 hours to hit the road. So it gets up on you quick, but it's exciting. I would say this year's, excuse me, maybe a little bit different than a lot of other years just because of the crappy weather that we've had. And I know there's a tons of teams in the north that have faced the same thing. We haven't really been outside. We got outside in the middle of January before all that really bad snow and then the cold. We got outside for a few days before that, but haven't been able to be out since. Um, so it's a little different from that aspect because you're kind of trying to figure out what you've got. You haven't been able to scrimmage and really see guys, put guys in certain situations. So you're relying on pitchers throwing to hitters in cages and it's dark and tough to see. And I mean, it's the same thing many teams are facing up in the north this year. So we don't have any excuses, nor will we make any. It's just a little bit different. Yeah. But so with that said, we're just ready to go. I mean, we're just ready to get out and be outside and have some warm weather and take BP outside and make our mistakes, which are inevitable from not being out. We're going to make them. And as a staff, we've got to stay patient with that. And then the fun part is going to be to fix them. So we know that the players are going to make a lot of mistakes. And then we've got to be ready as a coaching staff to be able to fix them, which will be the fun part.
A team that, especially from a position player standpoint, it feels like you've got a ton of experience, you've got a ton of returning production. What is that like having kind of managed the opposite of that? It feels like the last couple of years where you're trying to get guys that important experience, but now just having so many people that have played so many games.
Yeah, we do. We're fortunate. We returned. We're able to retain. Evan Applewick, Dom Krapinski, Ryan Novak. Those three in particular have been just kind of guys that have been in the lineup and not come out and been in big situations and gotten big hits and or they've failed in big moments, which is important too because they've been out there and learned from those, which will allow them to have success, moving forward. So just that type of experience and then experience on the mound with a guy being able to retain a Carson Byers, guys like that. Austin Bergeron's had a really good preseason, so it's good. I mean, to answer your question, it's a reassuring feeling knowing that you've got some experience out there. You're not taking an entire group and going through it, for the first time, as they're not all going through it for the first time. You've got some returners who can kind of be, almost an extension of the coaching staff out on the field.
Talk about your portal class a little bit, because ever since you got here, you've gone to a lot of different routes, whether it's four-year schools that aren't Division One or going to high majors or JUCO guys, and you guys kind of did that again. So what did you want to add when you were taking a look at the portal, and what do you think of the class coming in?
Well, we knew we were going to need a center fielder, because last year at this time, I don't know if we would have been able to predict Anthony Zarlingo moving to center and doing as well as he did defensively. But after Ignacio Gonzalez got hurt the second game of the year, who was our opening day third baseman, that moved Dom Krapinski, who was our center fielder, into third. And then Anthony Zarlingo got his chance in center. But even with that, he was a senior. We knew we were going to need a center fielder. So we went out and got a really fast junior college player named Marcus Dirks, who's real. I mean, the speed is, Luke, it's real speed. Probably the fastest player that I've ever coached, that probably all of us have ever coached. And it's real speed if we can keep him healthy. So we knew we were going to have to replace center field. Then we knew we were going to lose the middle of our field, which is not what you want to have as a coach. You want to be able to recruit it to a roster that isn't replacing the main parts of your lineup out all at the same time. But we had that last year's team, and we've talked about this. It was pretty much the most of the same guys that had kind of been here when we got here. So yeah, David Novak behind the plate, Blake Buzzio, Dylan Baker up the middle, and then our center fielder was Anthony Zarlingo, and so we replaced the whole middle of the field, which isn't something that you would necessarily draw up as a coach. So there'll be some growing pains. We've replaced some guys. We've gone the 4-year transfer route. Ryder Kirtley from Virginia Tech is an in-state player that went down to Virginia Tech, very highly decorated recruit, incredible baseball talent. We'll see how it shakes out for him. I don't know if he'll be in their opening day, but he's certainly talented. Excited about him. The one kid that we haven't talked about is Jamie Rasmussen, who redshirted. He was here last year, big 6'4" right-handed hitter who redshirted last year. And he'll probably make the start at third base opening day. He's big, physical, right-handed, which is what we need because we're predominantly left-handed. Looks really good defensively and offensively. Looks really, really good. But you're right. We've gone JUCO route. We've gone 4-year route. We're in unprecedented territory from a recruiting standpoint. Nobody knows across the country, unless you're, one of those programs that can just pay to get the best players off of the mid-major rosters or other major rosters. You can just have $1 million budget at your disposal to just go pay guys. We're in kind of unprecedented waters in terms of the direction that you want to take from a recruiting standpoint. So you're kind of in year-to-year mode. You kind of address your needs throughout the spring and go find the best players available and then try to coach them and get them to gel together.
It's from a pitching standpoint, the last couple of years, it seems like the rotation has kind of been in limbo for parts of the year. Obviously, you had one of the more dominant pitchers in the league that you're replacing coming into this season. So, what are your impressions? How set in stone do you feel like roles are on the staff in terms of rotation, in terms of maybe closing, and what's the pitching expected to look like this year?
Yeah, so you rewind 12 months. We had no idea last year at this time that Cooper Kasky was going to do what he did. We had no clue, nor did we have any idea that, like I said, Anthony Zarlingo was going to do what he did defensively in center field. There's always guys that emerge. We're going to move Carson Byers from the closer role into a starter role. Whether or not that stays that way isn't necessarily dependent on Carson. It's dependent on can the bullpen sustain not having him in it, because he is a very reliable, proven guy on the backside of games. So we'll see how that goes. But he'll start game 1 of the year, and we're very confident no matter what role you put Carson in, he's going to be successful. It's just whether or not some unproven guys can fill the void that Carson will leave in that bullpen. And that there's no way to know until we get out there and do it. And somebody will get the ball when we're up 1 in the 7th. And they're either going to have to bridge it to somebody else, or we're going to rely on them to close the game like we have Carson the last couple of years. So we will find out in a hurry, and then we'll make our adjustments as needed as we have the last 2 years.
And then last thing, just looking at your guys' schedule, Southern coming up this weekend. You guys haven't been much of a 4-game weekend type of team over the past couple of years. You have 2 of those setups. First down in Port Charlotte, where you'll get a chance to look at a few different teams, including your former Indiana State Sycamores, and then you'll also play a 4-game set against SEMO a little bit later on. So talk to us a little bit about what it was like to put together the non-conference schedule, what you wanted, and why you decided to play a couple of those 4-game weekends.
So yeah, the 4-game weekends in particular, we were trying to get as many games in as possible before we open up conference play. And I think we're at about 12 or 13 games maybe before we open up conference play, because we play 33 conference games. We start conference play so early. And I would say most leagues around the country, they've got at least 4, maybe 5, and sometimes 6 weekends before they start conference play. We've got 3. So I was trying to get as many games in as possible before we start conference play, and we start against Eastern Michigan. And because we got to see what we got, and we've got to fail and make our adjustments. And if you're only playing 8 or 9 games before you open up conference play, that's less opportunity to fail. It's less opportunity to fix things. So we've got to make our adjustments before we start conference play because it's going to take, I think, 26 or 27 wins at least to win our league this year. And that's a lot of wins. You got to be prepared. Every game counts. We got to be ready to go once Eastern Michigan rolls to town that first conference weekend.
Miami opens up the season this weekend down in Baton Rouge, Louisiana against the Southern Jaguars. 6 o'clock start Friday, 3 o'clock Saturday, 1 o'clock Sunday. Getting out of this weather a little bit of rain in the forecast on Saturday, but
Yeah.
temperatures expected to be in the 70s. Coach, best of luck. Thanks so much for chatting.
Thanks, Luke.